Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor, joined with Newt Weston and Owen. And we're about to dive into some really good defensive linemen. But before we get going, Newt, how is the football season treating you?
Oh, it is so nice, especially like now that you just have time to sit back and relax. Like, tossed on the Bama Oklahoma game and just sat back, drank some beers to that, and then Georgia, Texas. I'm like, this is the best way to spend a Saturday. And then obviously just having football all day on Sundays for NFL. It's so nice. I love it. This is one of the best times of the year. I mean, honestly.
It must help to have Micah Parsons on your favorite football team to be able to sit back and watch football.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so Owen, I see a lot of you. It's good to see you again on a Wednesday night.
I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not, Jim.
You definitely take it as a compliment. You're podcasting twice a week.
What you meant was, Owen, I see too much of you.
Yeah,
I figure out a way to get you off this podcast.
I have a way with words. Owen's doing offensive line on Tuesdays. He's doing defensive line. And I was telling Newt prior to coming live, it's just nice to podcast with people where I trust their evaluation. Right? So I'm really curious to see where Newt has Austin Barber graded. But
I'm excited to see that just from how much I've been seeing.
That's kind of been like the talk of the Draft Professor text lately. Like that was the one. I was watching Llewellyn tape last night, and I was like, I'll toss on Jerry and Owen just kind of in the background, and I hadn't seen any of Barber, and I was like, all right, I really like what I hear about this. Like I can't wait to check him out, and I just saw like everyone else like he's a day 3 guy, this that. Damn, like Jerry and Owen are like just kind of living on an island by themselves.
Listen, if I'm going to go down with a ship on with anybody about an offensive line prospect, I'll take the guy who played in the league for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't blame you there.
Yes. So let me finish this last tweet to PR the podcast. Okay, so we're going to be covering some defensive linemen for you. This is a good group. We are kicking the show off with Amari Washington from Oregon, following up with Dontay Corleone from Cincinnati, Peter Woods from Clemson. Then we're going to shift to some edges. TJ Parker from Clemson, Mikail Kamara from Indiana, LT Overton from Alabama, Keldric Faulk from Auburn, Arvell Reese from Ohio State, and then we're going to close it out with Rueben Bain from Miami. Amari Washington from Oregon. Newt, tell us about him.
So Amari Washington was a player that was new for me. I didn't get a chance to look at him over the summer. And I know he was a guy that, correct me if I'm wrong, is this his first year in a full-time starting role? Yeah, because they had Harmon and who was the guy that both of us liked last year? Who? Caldwell. And Branch too, or Birch. So they had this is a fresh group. So I didn't really know what to think of him. And I was about, a dozen snaps into the Indiana game. And I'm like, I love this guy. Like, how is he not getting talked about more? And then after I got done with that, I checked out Mock Draft Database, and sure as shit, he's like flying through the roof. I'm like, okay, like this guy is getting the hype that he deserves. I want to call him a my guy, but I was probably a little late to the party for that. But he's still someone that I really, really liked. One film in, got a chance to then watch the Penn State game. I saw everything all over again, and I just fell in love. He was, I think, what I wanted Bear Alexander to be in terms of an interior presence in that Oregon system. And I think that those two together make that such a dangerous front. But I think Amari Washington is definitely the better of the two. With him, he looks the size, 6'3", 330 pounds. And at that size, he plays with a first step explosion like you would not expect. And it's something that allows him to be incredibly disruptive. on top of that, and there's a lot of guys I feel like I say that about in terms of the defensive tackle group, but they end up being day 3 grades because they just don't have the next step to capitalize on that first step explosion. And I think Amari Washington really does. I think he's really refined as a pass rusher. He showcases a ton of moves. I've seen him hit a swim move, a club, the ability to even hit like a little bit of a Euro step and a rip. And it's fun seeing a guy that big that's light enough on his feet to be able to cross over an interior offensive lineman. But then at the same time, be a really stout run defender and someone that is able to, once again, utilize that hand technique to stack and shed and keep himself clean. So he's a guy that, if you're looking for, and we've talked about historically on this show, a 3-down interior defensive lineman, that's going to be someone that, I value highly and that definitely rises up the boards. He's, in my opinion, going to be that for you. Is he the best interior pass rusher? No. Is he the best interior run defender? No. But he's a damn good run defender, and he's probably going to be like a top 3 interior pass rusher once my board is all said and done. Now, I think with him, he's got to be able to get home a little bit more often. He's only got 1 sack on the year. He's got a decent win rate, but all of those things, don't really end up affecting the game unless he's able to capitalize on it. So I think he's got to make more of that, but I think the moves are there, and it's just kind of putting the final pieces together with that. Missed tackle is terrible. He's got to fix that. I think he's at currently an 18%. So I guess under 20% I'll take, but if that's the bar, it's one that you can still work on. And then I think just consistency would be the other element. I've seen him really show out against offensive line, but then other times, he almost lets himself get exposed. And the minute an offensive lineman gets their hands on him, he's kind of dead in the water. So a guy that I'm really excited about. I really like him as a interior defensive lineman that can play all 3 downs. And I think he's got a lot of juice in the pass rush. So he comes in with a hair outside of a true first-round grade for me.
Oh, and where are you on Amari Washington?
Yeah, that's okay. So I knew coming into this that Washington was going to be Newt's dude. That was the guy from being a loyal follower of NFL Draft _Western on Twitter. I knew Washington was the dude that popped for Newt. So I knew I wasn't coming as high as him. So the hair under a first, I am not there, but I can see it. And I'm sure if I got a couple more games, the Iowa game especially, I watched that game and what the games I watched as well that you mentioned already, the what was it, Indiana game and the Penn State game.
Yep,
those games were very impressive. I think what impressed me the most though was the Iowa game, which was not graded out particularly well at PFF, but you just saw a lot of those other games, he's using that quick twitch and getting some pass rush like you were talking about. But that Iowa game against these big dudes who are pro-trained. Me and Jerry had a good conversation about how Iowa is one of the only teams in college now that coaches up their guys to be NFL caliber talent while they're in college. And he's showing off that 6'3", 330 in that game. He's attacking with his hands, holding the point of attack. He's getting moved off his spot through double teams, but it's through double teams by absolute units on that Iowa line. And then he's not getting moved and out of the way completely, but he's taking up those types of blockers. So that was a good game for me that showed off okay, yeah, he's big at the size and he's got the flash to his game, but this is where he's really going to make his money there. He showed up in a game where he needed to be that type of player, holding his ground, playing with that power of being that gapper in run defense. That's okay, this is the starting spot. How high can we get his pass rush ability? Is he going to be a guy that can be like a Dexter Lawrence, where he's got that level of size and ability to anchor against the run, and then you add that pass rush ability, which is where you see guys like that get drafted super high up. So if we can see a bit more unlocked, maybe if there's in the offseason circuit or as the season closes out, he can really turn it on a bit. I might be able to get up there with you, Newt. But for right now, I have him solidly round 2 just because he's a guy that has that great floor, and I'm just questioning, okay, what is the ceiling here? Have we reached the ceiling? Is there more ceiling to tap into? How much can we really unlock from this point, because he does look so polished in a lot of what he does.
Yeah, I've got that Iowa game now down to watch because you make a good point. I don't, I'm never going to watch a guy play against Group of 5 or an FCS competition. It's fun to watch a guy get 4 sacks in a game, but it just isn't worth it to me. No disrespect to like a Group of 5 teams, UB. I love the guys that come from the program, but like I want to watch that competition that showcases that, and I think you make a really good point that getting a chance to see him against Iowa, especially because I have all the respect for those Iowa guys. I think that program turns out some of the best talent in the trenches. I've got that down as a must-watch game now for him.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal one for him.
Oh, and how many defensive tackles do you have graded higher than Amari Washington right now?
2. He tackles 3 for me.
It's Peter Woods and who else?
Dominic Orange.
Got it.
Okay.
So those are my 2 dudes right there. That I know those guys I'm going to be always higher on for most guys, if anything.
And I believe
where do you have Kristen Miller?
He's in that bucket, but definitely on the lower end of it.
Okay.
I just have to see a bit more. That was based off of just the summer scouting. I haven't gone back to re-update that as much as some of the other guys have.
Nice.
Okay. Next player, Dontay Corleone from Cincinnati, 6'1", 335 pounds. Owen, what have you seen from Corleone this year?
Yeah, so this is a guy that back when I was doing my live streams, I watched him on live heading into the season. So it was in preparation for the season. It wasn't during it in my summer scouting run through. And I was confused by what I was watching at first because he was a starter for them since freshman year at Cincinnati. And you can see the development in his body through the different years as he develops. Like he starts out as like this undersized, sub 300-pound, just absolute explosive athlete, quick dude, winning with speed and bend, and a lot of stuff that really pops. And then as he gets older, and last season specifically, he adds the weight on, and he starts to try to still play that like finesse style. And you're like, okay, if you can put it together and you're this size and still win with some of that finesse and athleticism, we got a dude going on. But if you're going to add that weight on, I expect you to play a bit bigger size. And this is actually why it's good to update your grades, especially this far into the season. You've got 10-plus game film now from this season. He's at 6'1", 335, so he's definitely fully filled out now. And I think especially now, and like that Baylor game, especially when I watched it, you can see he's kind of coming to his own more when it comes to taking up blocks, playing through his hands, playing through his weight, and still having some of that athletic ability to get out of the stance and beat dudes and shoot gaps. But as well now he's starting to add and play more into that size. I do still think there's room for him to grow as a run defender with his eyes. Being able to locate the ball carrier and then attack the right gaps as he's going by with timing. I brought up the Baylor game as a good example of how like there was a play where he holds up the center and then as it was either quarterback draw or a halfback dive, and one hand on the center is holding him up, other hand is reaching over and grabbing him, basically picking the dude up by the chest protector. And it's like, oh, that's a great play. And then there's like 3 or 4 other plays where he's one-on-one with the dude, he's controlling the point of attack, but he's peeking over the wrong shoulder. He just misses the ball as it blows by him. So there's a lot of stuff that he's still learning to do as more of like a traditional gap in, gap out type of stout run defender, but he's got the size. He's starting to come to his own with that, with the power and the strength, and he's still maintaining some of that athletic burst you saw from his younger days when he was a different build of athlete. So I'm getting a lot higher on Corleone than I was coming into the season after summer scouting. So I have him with a later day 2 grade. He's in that round 3 bucket, higher than some other guys that I do like. I have him higher than Daryl Jackson Jr. and DeMonte Capar, we've talked about previously. But for me, I think he's a guy that's kind of more of a wild card when it comes to like what's his true ceiling. Like we talked about a bit with Washington, but you can give me the pitch. You can give me the pitch of what his ceiling really is. Corleone, it's kind of still up in the air. It's like, okay, how far can we take this development? How far can we marry these 2 skill sets together to make like a dominant player in the interior of the defensive line?
Owen, does his past medical factor into your grade?
So I don't have a specific spot for medicals. I'll definitely note it and flag it, especially if I'm going to start doing predictive mock drafts or mock drafting him to teams where I want to get a fit in. And like say, if he's going to go to a team that has a history of guys in their D line that have injury problems and you're trying to mock him there, that's where I start to like factor it in. But when it comes to the grade itself, I don't have a specific number or factor I factor that in with.
And to be specific for anybody watching, I believe he medically retired with blood clots in 2023. He came back and played in 2024. So this is the third year I've been tracking Corleone for the draft, but he medically retired, then came back. Newt, what do you have on Dontay Corleone?
So Corleone is a guy that I think Owen summarized it really well. I think what you're getting from him as a run defender is going to be someone that's able to two gap, someone that's able to showcase that frame that, Owen's kind of done a really good job of showing, like, he's really come into that, filled it out, and you have, a guy that's 6 foot, 330 pounds that is really just like a dude in the middle. The problem I have, though, is, and it's, what Owen had said was, you got a guy, and if you go on Cincinnati's website, they're going to boast it left and right that I think he had like the highest defensive graded season for any player via PFF his freshman year. Like it was an incredible season that he had. And most of that was reliant on his pass rush ability. And that got a little bit worse in 2023, got a little bit worse in 2024. And in my opinion, it got a lot of bit worse in this last year. And so while I've kind of seen him mature a little bit more as an interior run presence, I've seen him really take a big step back. And, one season I can kind of explain this has been a trend for him. And I don't necessarily love that. And for me, it kind of pushes him a little bit more into that middle of day 3 conversation. I just think there's a lot of guys that give me a little bit higher of a ceiling or a little bit more of a opportunity to grow and be that impactful player, where you might say, okay, well, Corleone, he's a safe pick, but then you have, some of the issues that you talk about, the blood clots, and you have this kind of negative trend that I've seen with him. And I think there's definitely a spot for him. I definitely see Owen having him with that day 2 grade because of the strength that he plays with and the anchor ability that he has. My problem is I just don't think he's like that impactful of a run defender, and his pass rush is really just kind of underwhelming in my opinion, where he doesn't crack my day 2 and he sits like right in the middle of day 3.
Okay. Newt, Peter Woods from Clemson. Is he defensive tackle 1 from summer scouting all the way through the end of the year?
He is DT1 from summer scouting, and he is DT1 right now. I will say I had him as a blue chip prospect via summer scouting. Taking a step back, he's still a first round grade for me. I think he's still, this really dangerous presence in the middle. And I'm trying to kind of look through it with the lens of everyone on Clemson. Looks like they have just regressed, and obviously the program is struggling right now. So not trying to tie it to, the success of the program or the elements that are going around it. But I think just a little bit underwhelmed in general with that. But the traits that Peter Woods has are still very, very prevalent. He is so incredibly strong in terms of the way that he's able to play with a 310-pound frame, but through creating leverage and having good anchor technique, that he's able to basically just grab guys by the shoulders and toss them out of the way. I think his length plays a good factor in that when you start looking at what he's able to do to kind of maximize that strength. I think he's got, the hands and the explosive first step and the things that you want and you look for from that. But I think his build and that strength are going to be 2 of the things that really, really set him apart. I said last year, and I kind of stick by it with this year, I need him to convert more wins into pressures and more pressures into sacks. He's got like a 16% win rate right now, which is great for an interior defensive lineman. And we're talking about DT1, you would expect that. But for him, he's got 3 sacks on the season, and I want to say like 2 of them were versus like group of 5 competition, where it's like, that's great, but I need to see you do more and be more impactful when we start talking about you playing against that higher level of competition and showing out. And then I think that he right now is so much stronger and built in a way that lets him be dominant, that I don't want to say he's lazy, but he just doesn't have that really refined technique that he could have that really pushes him over the top. I want to see his mechanics and his hand placement improve in order to generate a little bit more opportunity with that leverage and with his ability to disengage from blockers quicker, just to continue to allow him to progress as an interior presence, both in the run and the pass. But he's got a first-round grade from me. He's a guy that you just talk about the traits and the tools that he brings with the way he's built, the way he moves, and the strength. It's what you want to see with defensive line presence. Is he kind of what I thought he was going to be, is like this Jalen Carter 2.0? No, I don't think he is. But I still think he's a really damn good defensive tackle and someone that you're going to see his name called in the top 20 picks.
Oh, where are you and Peter Woods right now?
Yeah, coming into the season after summer scouting, he was like my number 1 overall player. Like, I was in love with Peter Woods. Just like, and I think a lot of the stuff that I fell in love with over the summer is still there. And I do think that the Clemson kind of stink is really working its magic on it. I didn't want to punish him too hard, because a lot of the stuff that I was saying before the season hasn't really changed much. So for me, Peter Woods, 6'3", 310. I think he was listed 315 last year. He's definitely in that range, but you cannot tell. He's absolutely like svelte, just absolutely built the right way. And he's this freakazoid athlete where he's 310 plus pounds. They put him on an edge, and he's able to bend around the corner. He plays with so much strength and power in both his lower and upper body. Has movement ability, has ability to get off the twitch. He can beat you by shooting past you. He can beat you by going through you. And he can win in space, especially. And so I went back and checked those sack numbers, by the way. I know this would be a point I'll come back around to. It was 2 against Boston College and 1 against Duke so far this year are his sacks.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Nice.
So yeah, a lot. I think there's a lot of stuff that, he's just that kind of guy, that he's out there out athleting and out talenting a lot of teams, even against like ACC competition and other high level schools. He's still clearly like the best athlete on the field at any one point or another. So I do think he does need to be refined a bit, just because that's going to be the case. It kind of reminds me like when Ed Oliver was at Houston, and you saw a guy that like, I'm just better than all of you at this group of 5 level. And I don't really need to be this super refined player, except Peter Woods is doing that at the ACC level. To loop back around to what you were saying, Newt, about him not converting a lot of his pressures and especially his sacks, all 3 sacks came the same way, which was on a stunt loop where he was the like 3 tech or the 1 tech, and they had some card crashing, and then he axed across as the late come around guy, and was able to show off that athleticism, that bend, and then close the gap and make the sack there. I think a lot of his production could be increased if you had some guys that maybe were playing more up to their competition. Like if he was playing with guys that also weren't all having down seasons, and they were able to cook up some more of those kind of plays, he might have some better production. And we'll talk about that more with his teammate when we get to the edge group. Yeah. Like just the lack of production across the board with those guys is a bit alarming.
Well, and he's knocking Capehart, who we covered last week.
Well, so I want to ask you a question, because I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually got really frustrated watching Peter Woods tape. Because it's like 2/3 of the snaps, he's like running a stunt. Did you saw that as well?
Yeah, I think if you had a guy who was as talented as he is, why would you not want him to just like, if you can develop so to Jim's point about Capehart, you have a guy that in Capehart that's going to be drawing the double teams. Like that's their nose tech or their 1 tech. That's the guy who's going to be getting the double teams from teams, especially even in pass rush downs, because he can still win with some power, despite how much Newt hates him. But you're asking that guy to run a ton of these stunt plays and a lot of these twists where it's not playing to their players' strengths. You have Peter Woods and then like TJ Parker we'll get to, who are these like super athletes that it's like, okay, go out there and win your one-on-one battles, but
Yeah.
instead you're asking them to win with timing. And then when Peter Woods is stunning around, he's stunning into a triple team because that's all the linemen are shifting and moving around. It's just not putting these guys in a place to advantage. I don't know if there's been a changeover on the defensive side there with their D line coach or their D coordinator. I haven't kept up with Clemson that close. I'm sure that's a Sam Teets question. But for me, everything that I've loved about Peter Woods is still there. I'm not going to knock him out of blue chip prospect just because I was that high on him. I just don't think he can be my number one overall prospect this right now in this part of the cycle without me seeing him produce more or like grow a bit more than what I saw. I think he's still there. If God forbid he falls to the late teens and a team perhaps in the 20s or 30s that has a bunch of needs on the D tackle and D line can trade up and get him. Perhaps could move up and get them there, Buffalo Bills. But you could have a guy if he falls that far, like you're pouncing all over that. But I still think he's a top 10 drafted player just because even the tape from last year should have him solidified there no matter what.
Yeah, and like I agree with you, and I kind of came to that conclusion at the end, and it did drive me nuts because I feel like nothing that Clemson did this year helped them out because they weren't letting Peter Woods win in the ways that he should have been allowed to win. So I think you make a really good point. I'm glad you brought that because I had thought of it at the time, and I forgot to write it down. And when you brought that up, it just kind of all came back. So I think that is totally fair and a great point to make because he's a damn good player. And it does surprise me that they don't let him just win by being the player that he is.
So do you guys see Peter Woods as I'm listening to you guys? I believe I heard 3 tech.
Yeah.
Like that's the defensive line role. Do you guys see him as he's a 3 tech at the NFL level? Do you guys see it as he could play 0 out to like 4-eye? How do you see him?
I 3 and 4. I mean, like, are you going to be in an odd or an even front? He can play anywhere up the line, in my opinion. Last year you saw him play half the freaking season as an edge rusher coming off on the outside corner of the the offensive tackle. I like him when he's able to work that B gap and kind of be a menace with a guard or, wreak havoc on a tackle on the inside shoulder. I don't think he could not do those other things, but I like him kind of in that 3 tech role.
Yeah, I think he could play 0 through 5 tech. Whatever you require of him, he can do it. Because he also played 0 tech last year. He played edge rusher. He played everything in between. And it wasn't even like edge rusher. It was like a wide 9 edge. Like he was coming off of these super wide angles and turning the corner. It was amazing. That's when I remember texting Newt. I was watching his film at a bar. And like, you have to get this guy on. You have to like check out this guy. He's insane. You can play him anywhere you want. I think the more space and more one-on-one opportunities you give him, the better you're gonna get. If you need to kick him in at 1 because you're injured or you just don't have the bodies there, for sure he'll survive. But you put him at 3, you put him at 5, you put him at 4-eye, he's going to elevate your defensive line past where you were previously because that's where he's going to be able to do the most damage possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And then Derek Harmon last year from Oregon, I believe he was drafted in the 20s to Pittsburgh.
21?
Yeah. How do you compare Peter Woods to Derek Harmon? I realize they're not the same player, but I think they're going to be drafted in about the same spot. So how would you compare and contrast them?
If Peter Woods is the 21st overall pick, I'm going to be ranting for – I don't care. I don't care where the Buffalo Bills are picking. If Peter Woods makes it to 21 and they don't trade up for him, I'm going to lose my shit. I can promise you that. But
I think Peter Woods is a better draft prospect than Kenneth Grant, who was my DT2 last year. And Kenneth Grant went, 13 to Miami or something like that?
Yep. Okay.
So I think Peter Woods should be – and now there are some things that are going to, change that a little bit. you're probably going to have 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks in this class that go early rather than just the one. That can, like push things back. But I think in a class when he's clearly the best defensive tackle, I don't think that is a hot take in the slightest. When you have a team that has any need on the defensive line because of, the things we just said, being able to play 0 through 5 tech, I think a team's going to jump all over him, especially when you start talking about the fact that, hey, you've got, and a guy we're going to talk about a little bit later, as maybe like your edge one, but like after that, I think that Peter Woods, if you talk about across the defensive line, he's going to make a good case to be like the second best defensive lineman in this class.
Yeah, I mean, he's tied with the grade I gave Mason Graham last year. Like he's
okay, yeah,
okay.
And it's in different ways. Graham was a lot more polished and technical with a lot of it with his hands and being able to attack the run and the pass with his hands more so than Woods is. Woods is just like a different level of athlete. Like where I wanted Graham to unlock it last year, that's where Woods is. If they you combine the two of them, I think it's a perfect prospect. I think Jalen Carter is still, I think, the highest graded player I've ever graded. And then that would be where you're at, is if you can give Peter Woods Mason Graham's technical ability, which he can grow into now. So again, if he lasts to the 20s, Harmon was a player that he was obviously playing out of position in college, where he was a primarily edge rusher, and you saw there was a lot of projection of that, and he had some issues with leverage and run defense, especially when projecting him inside a bit. And he wasn't the level of athlete Woods was at. So if they go in the same spot, I don't see, other than the quarterback inflation market and maybe like a run on offensive tackles with pushing him down. And even then, I don't think this guy makes it out of the top 10, no matter what.
Plus, Peter Woods has like half the missed tackle rate that Derek Harmon had. Let's not forget that.
Okay, his teammate, TJ Parker from Clemson. Owen, where are you on TJ Parker now that we are most of the way through the college football season?
So I kind of want to toot my own horn a little bit, because I haven't really come off of where I was in the summer scouting when it came to TJ Parker, and I mean, that's not to say that he has played up to what you saw, but it's more so he was one of the first players I watched. Clemson was the first episode we did doing the summer scouting process with me. And I watched TJ Parker, and I saw a dude, all the athleticism in the world, has some strength, has some long arms, but he was a bit more raw when it came to, for me, despite having super crazy sack production, you just saw him win just by being a better athlete, not really having a ton of rush moves and counters and abilities to win technically. And I said, okay, he's a first-round pick. This is a guy similar to a former Clemson player like Miles Murphy, where it's like, okay, dude's a stud athlete. He wins off of being a stud athlete. I need to see him grow more as a technician before I can jump into. People had him as like edge 2 behind Rueben Bain in that top 10 discussion, blue chip discussion. And I wasn't there, and I felt like I was relatively lower on him at that point. And now that the season has gone on, he's gone from having 13 sacks to 2. And both those sacks weren't really from a result of him winning a rep by beating a guy one-on-one. It was him being a better athlete, keeping the motor hot, and then chasing a play and collapsing the pocket. I feel like I was right on with where I had him, and then going back and watching it just kind of confirmed where I projected him to be at, which is a more raw guy, but has all the talent in the world. Similar to Peter Woods, but I think Woods is even exponentially more so because of his size aspect, and he also has a bit more when it comes down to using his hands, even though that he can still grow there. Parker is even more raw than that, but he has that athleticism, and it's showing up this year. Again, they're running a ton of twists and stunts, and they're not just letting their guys be their guys like they did last year. Watching Parker's sacks and beaten by defender reps versus this year, you can see how much more was last year. Like, just go beat your guy, go beat the dude across from you. Whereas this year, he's trying to do what they're asking him to do, and it's just not working out in his favor. And it's probably one of the big issues with the entire defensive line right now, that they're not producing because of that. So he's a guy, still have him as a first-round grade. Didn't really even move his grade much at all, just because he's a dude that I think is going to go. And I just read, I think it was ESPN posted a mock draft today, had him at like 16th overall. And I'm like, if you told me someone took him 16th overall, I'd be fine with that. Yeah, he's a guy that I could pull. You're banking on developing him and pulling out that top end talent, that's where these kind of guys go. And he has the size. It's not like David Bailey is another guy that gets drafted super high in these mock drafts because he has kind of the opposite thing where he's a good athlete, but he has all the moves and he has all the technician part of it. Parker is a better athlete with better size and can be a guy who impacts the run a lot more than a guy like Bailey does, but he's just not there technically at all. So I could see him being in that same draftable bucket as Bailey, but for different reasons. And for a lot of people, it's going to be more favorable than a player like Bailey. Like I know I'm definitely higher on Parker than him, pretty significantly.
Newt, where are you on TJ Parker?
So I'm close to where Owen is. I had him a little bit higher with summer scouting. He wasn't a blue chip prospect, but he was flirting with it. He dropped a little bit, still a first round grade for me, but I think he nailed that. He was a player that, and I wrote down last year, he gets stymied when blockers get on him. He needs to use his hands better in run defense. And I think it's kind of, a lot of those things where he does have the athletic ability that you want. I wrote down the lateral agility is incredibly impressive. He's got a speed rip move that I think can really be extremely effective. And when he's able to use his athleticism to win, I think that's when he's at his best because he's able to stay clean. I think it's when he has, linemen get their hands on him that you see his deficiencies come up because he doesn't have the ability to, hand fight and counteract that like I like to see. So he did drop a little bit for me. Still got a first round grade. Really him, he was my edge 1, fell a little bit and he's now edge 2, but that's more a testament to the guy who rose above him in the season that he's having and everything that he brings. I will say, for him, he's, in my opinion, closer to being edge 3 than edge 1 right now, because I think that, and like not to like just keep flirting it out there, like Rueben Bain Jr. is like a dude, and I really really like him. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but I think TJ Parker, for the things that he does really well, Owen did a good job of identifying like, hey, you are this athlete, you are a ridiculously gifted player, but now you've got to continue to progress in there. And if we can see that, I like that. And I think he's got a ceiling to him. And when we talk about him as a first round grade, you want a player like that. I just don't think that he made the steps from last year to this year that I wanted to see. So he did drop a little bit for me.
Okay, so couple questions, and I know we're still going to cover Bain and Faulk a little bit later in the show. Bain, Faulk, and Parker they all actually have another year of eligibility, and Ryan Sparks in the chat is suggesting that Parker goes back to school. Have you guys seen an edge that was given a first round grade and chose to go back to school? Like we saw JTT and Sawyer do it. But they weren't
first round grades though. Jared Verse would be the one that pops in my head.
Okay. Yeah, he was a special his first year at Florida State, and then he went back, was special again, and then ended up being a guy that even he got drafted lower than he should have, especially even coming out of that second season.
Yeah, I was so pissed when he chose to come back because I was like, "What are you doing?" Because that was the draft with God. Who did the Raiders take? Tyrese.
Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, and it's just like, there's that. And like Verse, I thought he was so special. And then, he came back into what was like kind of a loaded edge group with Latu and
DG Turner.
Dallas Turner.
Yep.
And it didn't make sense to me. I thought he was a dude. I thought like, hey man, go be a top 10 pick. And I don't know. I still am left like kind of wondering about that. It turned out great for him. Like Owen said, he had a hell of a year at Florida State, his second year there, and he's tearing it up in the NFL right now. But he's the one that comes to mind.
Okay. Mikail Kamara from Indiana. So, Owen, I remember when we did the Indiana preview, this was one of the many players from Indiana that you called out when we were in the summer. But where are you on Mikail Kamara now?
Yeah. Another player that I feel like I'm not much different on from when I watched him in the summer, where some of these guys I was either lower on than the consensus and they've kind of fallen off. Some of the other guys I feel like I was a bit higher on and they've kind of lived up to that in the year coming up. Kamara's another one of those guys that I had, in that round 3 bucket. And for me, he's got the size deficiencies. We'll start with the negatives because I think that's one of the things that jumps out. He's 6'1", 262, doesn't play with a ton of length. Like we see it on tape. It's not going to be something that he's going to hang his hat on. And it's going to prevent a lot of teams from wanting to draft him, especially as a true edge. But for me, and I'm sure Newt loves him because he just plays with his hair on fire.
He does.
He's just a dude that flies around, loves playing football. And he has that. He's 262. He has that lateral mobility. He can get down the line of scrimmage and chase outside zones and pitches, and is able to take those angles and run down those smaller players, and just plays relentlessly through it. And like, he doesn't have the best pass rush package when it comes to being able to string together counters and a bunch of dominant moves, but his hands are constantly active, constantly moving. And the mix of him being just this relentless Energizer bunny off the edge, plus keeping his hands active and putting the offensive lineman on the defense, not allowing them to just get hands on and lock him down for a rep, allows him to get some production, even though he isn't this stud pass rusher. So I don't have him. I don't think he's ever going to eclipse like a lower end 3rd round grade for me, just because he's not that guy that can come in and you draft him to give you sack production. He's a guy you draft, come in, be that kind of character player on your edge, be more of an impact run defender than a pass rusher, and be a guy that you can rotate in as, and like, if he's your edge 3, you're really happy. You have your 2 studs to go get the quarterback or a DPR in your system, and you have this guy who's just coming off the bench ready to go kill somebody, and he does it with a smile on his face.
Nice. Did you say you had a 3rd round grade on him?
Yeah.
So I actually have like a 4th round grade on him. Yeah. I really liked Kamara coming out of the year, and it's exactly what you said. He's a guy that he's just so much fun to watch, and I would be more than happy if a team took him in the 3rd round just for those intangible factors that he brings, the work ethic, the character, a guy that you want to have around it. And I really think he's that. Following Cignetti from JMU over to Indiana and being a part of what's really now built the foundation for that program. I don't think you get that without Kamara. I think on defense, he's been a player that Cignetti's been really able to kind of build around and like I said, set that foundation. Everything that you had mentioned, my first line's relentless motor, and I love a player that runs hot. I just think that with him, he's not going to, like you said, really be this incredible pass rusher in the NFL. Last year, he was ridiculous in terms of the numbers he was able to put up. I think he even got like a first team All Big Ten nod. He got a first team All Big Ten nod. And once again, we're talking about, JTT. We're talking about Abdul Carter. We're talking about Jack Sawyer. All of these guys, Josiah Stewart, all of these guys that are in the Big Ten, and he was able to get, first team nod as a defensive end. But I think this year's been a little bit more true to where you see him. He's not a bad pass rusher. He's got a 23 pass rush win percentage on true pass sets. He's got 40 pressures. Like he's doing the things that you want from him. I just think that is going to be, kind of middling, and his size is going to be something where you say, well, how much more are you going to get out of that? And then I actually really don't like him that much as a run defender. I think he gets washed out of plays too easily. I don't think he sets like the hardest edge, and struggles at times to get off blocks. And I think it's part of that's, sub 33-inch arms, doesn't have the length. We talk about a guy that being shorter, you get natural leverage. But at the end of the day, when you're shorter, you also have a shorter stride length, and you're not able to, cover areas quickly. So I think that there's some pieces with Kamara where really that capped ceiling does push him down my board a little bit. The intangibles that you talk about, man, I really like it. I see what Ryan's saying as a long-term rotational guy. I absolutely see that being the case just for the character that he has. My problem is I don't see that long-term rotational guy, kind of where Owen's at, like 3rd round grade. Yeah, I can see that. And maybe when it's all said and done, that's where I come back if he starts testing out with some really freaky numbers. Okay, sweet. Like I'll give him a bump if I can see that athleticism, shine a little bit more than others. But I don't know how much more he's going to pop up than that, even with those intangible factors.
Yeah, I think I do give him credit a lot more for being like a really good athlete overall, just because he has some bend in his frame, and his ability to be lateral and be quick.
Oh,
I really
yeah.
do like. And I do agree with you. I think he's going to need to become a better run defender to make it worth being a guy that it's going to be a rotational piece. I don't think he's a great run defender right now just because he struggles to stack instead, shed, and set that hard edge. But I wrote that, like, if you have like a 3-4 outside linebacker and he could be like, I think he could be an eventual starter in that kind of position where he's a player that can work in a lot of more space. You're allowing him to flow and use that athleticism to compensate for that. And he just has a nose for the football. And if you're going to be in an even front, you're going to have to either have him be a weak side, or if he's your third guy, comes off the bench. His hands are so active. I do think he lacks the elite pass rush upside because he doesn't have the length specifically and to put that together. But I do think the fact that he has moves, like when his production last year shows it, he has moves in his toolkit. He just doesn't have the power to complement it as much, where I really like edge rushers that can have build through that base of power first, then have things that work off of it after that. But he's one of those rare guys that moves in space. He can hand fight with anybody and has a couple moves that really do work. It just is, I never think he's going to have that power element. So I think he's a bit more upside in pass rusher than maybe I may have gave him credit for when I first was talking about it, or maybe gave off that I felt. I do think he is going to be a solid pass rusher. I think 6 sacks a year as like a rotational guy in, and again, as a third edge rusher, pitching in 6 sacks a year, being an absolute energizer bunny for the rest of your team, that's someone who I'm like, okay, especially at a position of need, I would invest a day 2 pick in that just to be able to bring that, especially if you're going to have to do a culture change. And this is like a culture pick 100%.
Yeah, I get that. And I've got written down, I think that when it talks about, him with pass rush concepts, he knows how to use his hands. He can win on the inside counter. He can bend around the outside, even though he doesn't have the length. He's got the speed, as you were saying. So just a guy that, I'm rooting for. And I'm trying to find a way to, push him up a little bit, but I'm also trying to be a little more realistic about, hey, where is this guy going to be at, just given those factors?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're halfway through the list. We have 4 more to go. LT Overton from Alabama. Owen, where are you on LT Overton right now?
So I heard his name last year in mock drafts, and I ended up going back. And so I was curious to really get into him, especially because I was under this impression that he was like this kind of big, bulky dude, 6'5", 278. He looks like a really, really well built for a guy that is that size. He doesn't look like this typical inside-outside tweener dude, like we were talking about, like a Messiah Birch from last year or Derek Carman, how they had him playing. He looks like a true 5-tech player, which he's been playing at Alabama, and they have him widen out. They have him condensed down inside. I think he works his best when he's condensed down more inside with given less space, because he just has that power. What I love about him is his ability to win both with power in his upper body. He has such long arms and heavy hands, but also his lower body just never stops. Like, he's able to run through dudes. He doesn't have the best, hand package when it comes to winning as a pass rusher, but the fact that he can get into guys, keep guys' hands off of him, and while he's not actively throwing a move, his feet are constantly moving and driving upfield, and he's so powerful with those legs that he's just blowing by guys in their outside shoulder and collapsing that pocket. So as a dude who can rush as maybe from a 3-tech spot, or if you run a traditional 5-tech area, I do like him a lot more for those positional spots. And if he does lose a little bit of weight, it's something like 270, 268, 267, something like that, I do think he could be more of a traditional even front edge if you really wanted to be able to set a harder edge. But for me, I came away with it wanting a lot more from a lot of things, whether it was going to be the pass rush move set, even his run defense. Sometimes he just loses the ball in times, and I'm not really he has the skill set to set a hard edge, defend the run, and it shows up at times. Other times there's those plays where I just leave me wanting more. So for a guy that, if you take him early day 2, I definitely think you're you're getting bang for your buck. As a guy in the back half of the first, I feel like I'd come away more disappointed than anything. If I was a team that really needed help an edge, I need like an impact dude who maybe could be someone who impacts the pass rush and then develops a run defense game a little bit later on, like a high impact pass rusher in the first round. And we came away with LT Overton. I'd probably be left wanting a bit more from that pick as opposed to, okay, we have our dude. We needed a solid number 2 to go across from our developmental guy. Okay, we took LT Overton with the 38th overall pick. I'm accepting that a bit more.
Where are you on LT Overton?
Man, I'm Mr. Poopy Pants today because I got a 3rd round grade on LT Overton. He's another guy I liked a lot in summer scouting, and I think that, Owen used the word underwhelmed. I was really underwhelmed just from the sense that I think the things that I really liked out of LT Overton over the summer, I didn't quite see as much. When you talk about him winning off the line and being able to be a disruptor, I didn't see him impacting the game like I wanted to. Owen talked about 278, and I think he wears it well. I just don't think the play strength matches that frame. When I look at a guy that's 278 pounds, I want to see him absolutely wrecking dudes. And I think spring measurements has him at 274, so it's pretty spot on for what he is. I didn't think that the play strength that he had matched the weight profile that he was able to bring. I think that with his ability to work in a shorter area, so like Owen said, I like him kind of more when he's playing closer to the tackle. I still like him as like a 5 tech. I think he's got good change of direction, but I didn't love his play speed. I think it takes him a little bit in order to kind of get that initial get off. I didn't love the burst off the line, which is why I liked it. Maybe when he's playing a little bit closer and doesn't have as far to go, but then at the same time, you have linemen getting their hands on him quicker if he isn't able to match that burst. So it's kind of like a little bit of a back and forth for me. Ultimately, it's a guy, I think he's solid. I have really no reservations about him being a rotational player. I just don't know if he's going to be more than a rotational player. I think he's kind of a middling player that's going to be able to give you a good floor, but I don't know how much more of a ceiling he's going to give you. And I see him kind of in that role. So that's why I walked around with the 3rd round grade. I did, off of what Owen said about kind of losing players in run defense, find it hilarious. Jim, I don't know if you know the retweet that you had for the PR for the show was like a really embarrassing play for LT Overton on Twitter. It was like him completely losing the ball carrier and tackling the wrong guy. And I know you do PR for like hundreds of players, but like, oh, I think Jim missed this one.
Yeah, that may happen once in a while. Next player, Keldric Faulk from Auburn, 6'6", 285. What did you think?
So Keldric Faulk is the exact opposite of LT Overton in terms of like how I saw him over the summer, because I was a little lower on Keldric Faulk, and I freaking love this guy now. I got a true 1st round grade on him. I think when you take a look at him, the length that he is able to play with and that 285 that he wears so incredibly well creates a guy that is just such a presence. And in terms of like, he plays a lot of that 4-eye for Auburn in an odd front. He can play as like a 5 tech. He can play as like a wide 7 coming screaming off the end. I think he's got a little bit better get off than you're going to see from like an LT Overton. It's not like the greatest, I'm saying, but it's still going to be something where I'm more comfortable with him being productive out in space. And then I just think everything that he pairs with that, the developing pass rush set that he's able to incorporate, the strength. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is I see this guy, and I tweeted out the Oklahoma clip of him getting a heavy pressure on Mateer. Like he just takes, it's a tight end. I'm not saying that he's doing it to an offensive tackle, but he just throws the guy out of the way. And it's like comical. It looks like he's playing, 2 levels up in Pee Wee football with how he's able to handle them. So I think that I had reservations about him over the summer because I questioned his play strength, and I look at him now and I don't have those questions. And you pair that then with, he's not a freak athlete, but he's able to move really well. And then that length that he's able to have on top of all that, I just think he's a guy that looks like a menacing presence as an even front defensive end. He can play an odd front 4-eye as well. But, man, if you give this guy the opportunity to play a 5-tech and just bully offensive tackles all day long, I think the decent athleticism plus the strength plus the length that he has is everything that I look for. So he's built like a defensive tackle or defensive end that I want to have in my system. And he brings the trait, he brings that developing skill set in there. And he's really, in my opinion, one of the more special edges in this class. I think that he does need to continue to work on his hand. That placement needs to get better. He needs to be able to get off blocks a little bit better, especially with that length. But if he can clean that up, he's a guy that, to the point that Owen's making, power first, and then he's able to pair that maybe with an inside move second. He's never going to be like this bendy athlete. But at that size and with that strength, I don't need him to be. So he comes in at edge 3 for me with a first-round grade. I love the way the guy's built. I love the way he plays the game.
Edge 3 is Arvell Reese considered an edge when you say?
No, I'm not considering Arvell Reese in that.
Who are the two? Rueben Bain's ahead of him. Who's the other edge that's ahead of him?
Parker.
Okay.
And Parker and Faulk are two very different players in my opinion. Where I could see, one system preferring Faulk over Parker. I know that Parker's a little bit hotter of a name right now. He's cooled off a little bit from the summer, but I think if you're looking for more of an old school defensive end that it has that size and strength, I think you'd go with Faulk. I think if you want the athlete, which a lot of teams in the NFL do, you're going to give Parker the nod.
Okay. Oh, and where are you with Keldric Faulk from Auburn right now?
So I have him as edge 4 with a grade that is, once you add the edge multiplier on, is easily a first rounder. But with tape wise, there's definitely some stuff that I'm left wanting more. So I don't have a true first round tape grade on him. But I do think so. You were explaining a lot. He reminds me a lot of watching Greg Rousseau at Miami when his draft year. This dude who's just 6'6", 285. He's so big and has a lot of weight on him. And he excels from being kind of a slasher type pass rusher where he's going into it's kind of a terminology used a lot in basketball when it comes to 3 or 4s who are not great shooters, don't have the great ball skills, but if they're coming down the lane hard and finding a crease and cutting through it and getting hard to their spot. So I think it matters a lot with him, especially where you get him condensing angles through tackles, being able to get hands on, using his long, heavy hands, have that as his foundational piece of his pass rush skill set. He's still needing to add around that. He doesn't have the elite bend. He doesn't have elite speed to complement it. He's not some Will Anderson level talent, but he's a guy that again a Rousseau who was drafted at 30, who won and got some production and got sacks because he had length. He was able to go through your face. And be able to just impact by being just an absolute unit. And then you get a team that wants to bring him in and run that more even front base like Newt was talking about. And he's your play side, strong, set a hard edge. I do think I would like to see him improve a bit more as a run defender, utilizing his hands against pullers and when they're putting him in positions to be a target as opposed to just your outside zone, get hands on, stretch it out, get off, make a tackle. I think he does that well enough. But when it comes to keying and identifying different blocking schemes and knowing how to use your role to then impact that, both as a play side and backside defender, I think he still has room to grow there as a run defender, which, again, similar to Rousseau at Miami. I think this is my favorite comp of any of the guys we watch, is that I didn't think he did that particularly well at Miami. Now, his excuse was he transitioned from safety and was not playing edge for long. He was just kind of being out there, being a big absolute unit, whereas Faulk has been playing edge consistently. So, but Rousseau ended up growing into that and developing that a bit more, and you having the skill set, and then just being able to weaponize that and point it in the right direction of how to utilize it more. So, Faulk for me is a guy that you draft in the back half of the first 20s into the 30s, and you're really excited with what you get. I don't know how much more you can really piece together. Again, going with the Rousseau comp and going with his career trajectory, Mowgli is apparently a huge Kendrick Faulk fan because he started to run around me as soon as I talk about him. So he's got the Mowgli stamp of approval. But just to look at the Rousseau career arc, he's not a guy that produces a ton of sack production, but he's a guy that gets a lot of pressures. Having those traits and talents, he's going to be a guy that you could weaponize into being a good pass rusher. Maybe he isn't finishing it off, doesn't have the most polished skill set, but has everything you need to be able to be an impact defender at the NFL level in multiple different ways. But maybe he's never going to be like a top end, full flight pass rush type player.
That's fair. Okay. Do you have? Wait, you said edge 4. Do you have Messidor above him?
I do have Messidor.
Oh man, there it is. I love that.
Okay.
I love the love for Messidor.
Okay. So my hot take is one of the next 2 players that we cover is going to be a Tennessee Titan.
I don't think that's that hot. That's not that hot of a take, Jim. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Arvell Reese, edge linebacker, 6'4", 243 pounds. Owen, what did you see from Arvell Reese?
A dude that is like a top end player when it comes to like athlete to size to, you have him as an edge / linebacker, get him on the field wherever you can get him. Like if you're a team now, the Titans, like you were saying with your take there, the Titans as a team just drafted Oladejo out of UCLA, who was converted linebacker to edge this past year. And if you're a team that wants to run that 3-4 edge build and you have an Arvell Reese coming into this draft, like go get your guy. Like this is a dude gets hands on. You love to see it as a linebacker where a guy can get hands on offensive linemen, stun them, and then be able to just clog up that middle and make plays. Which him being 6'4", 243, and having the length and the size he does, he's able to do that. Coming off the edge, he shows a lot of stuff that's just natural pass rush skill and that I haven't really seen from a linebacker since like a Devin Lloyd, who you count it as like blitzing. You're like, okay, he can come off. He just knows how to win as a pass rusher. His main thing isn't doing that because he's stacked and he's flowing and he's trying to attack. But for a guy that has natural talent to be able to find a way to find the weaknesses in pass blocking offensive linemen and then utilize that to fight off of it and get into space and make plays, he has that in spades. So a dude who marks all the athleticism and size you have for the linebackers, and as an edge, maybe he isn't a consistent down-to-down, like set a hard edge, run defending edge rusher. But if you're in a 3-4 system or you're just you're a 4-3 and you want to be able to have a linebacker you send on blitzes every single third down and have 2 other guys that are more coverage match linebackers, Arvell Reese you can't go wrong anywhere you want to put him on it. You have him on the board, you draft him and get him on the field and utilize him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. No, I love that. So yeah, what was it, a week ago, Jim? I was like, hey, I know he's a linebacker, but please, can we get Arvell Reese on this show? And I'm
no
so
resistance for me. I'm a man of the people.
You are. If Jim is always willing to meet our requests. He is probably the most easygoing guy with that. Back to Arvell Reese, though. No, he's a player that I think Owen said it best. How you can get him on the field, you want him on the field. And for me, I graded him out as both an edge and a linebacker, and I stuck with him at linebacker. I had a higher grade with him at linebacker. And some of the deficiencies I saw for him as an edge were just really anytime he was playing run defense from the edge, I thought he got eaten up a little bit. I didn't love his ability to disengage from blocks and to be as impactful as he was when he's in the middle of the field, because I think he runs downhill really well and his vision is really good in the box, and that's what allows him to be a really good run-stopping linebacker. And so I think kind of with that, where you're at, I'm like, okay, I like him better here. But, I'm splitting hairs at this point because I think that, the ability that he gives you to be that versatile piece as a box run defender is phenomenal. Is he an okay cover linebacker? Yeah, he's an okay, but I don't really want him in coverage. Maybe in certain sets, I'll have him there. I know that Ohio State will spy with him a fair amount, which I think is something that's really able to maximize some of his athletic ability, especially if you come across a quarterback that is prone to scrambling. But man, when you put this guy in the edge and you have him in a clear pass set and you allow him just to pin his ears back and go, the obviously athleticism and length that he's able to play with is absolutely phenomenal. He's got almost 34-inch arms, and you can see it when you have him going around the edge, the bend he's able to get just from that center of mass being so low and the athletic ability that he brings. But what impressed me and really sold me on Arvell Reese was the play strength that he has. I saw him, put offensive tackles on their heels when he's just coming out with a two-handed bull rush. And it was something where you, as a 243-pound linebacker, you should not be doing that. Like, you are playing and punching 60, 70 pounds above your weight class, and you're making a guy look silly who's playing as a, offensive tackle in SEC football. That was the part for me where I was like, okay, this guy is absolutely special. He's able to, play with the strength I want to see. He's able to be a versatile piece that you can move around. And he's not a player that's homeless. He's got just a second home and a third home and on all these options that you can really put him in order to maximize the way that you want to play your defense. He really is that chess piece and not that bum sitting on the street with nowhere to go to. So I love Arvell Reese. I've got him as a linebacker. He's my LB1. If I had him graded out as an edge, he'd be my edge 2. But right now he's like my number 2 player on the board, just behind Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a linebacker for me. As like a true edge, I think there's a lot more negatives to his game once you put him as a consistent edge on the line of scrimmage. Whereas he's an edge that it plays better in space than he does on the line of scrimmage. So like you let him go out there, just be a downhill player, go make plays. Don't let them get in, force them to be in along the lay downs because you're stuffing the run and attacking like you do. And then okay, cool. Now just go be a dude. Like go be an athlete and go make a play on third downs. We can worry about who's in coverage and what's our the rest of our defense doing. You're just going to go out there and be a madman. He's not Micah Parsons, as in he's the linebacker or an edge first and then a linebacker. He's more of that Devin Lloyd role where he's more a linebacker first and they can chip in as an edge. But I think he's a better physical specimen than like a Lloyd is. He's closer to that Micah Parsons style, but he just has a bit different of a skill set that makes him better to be an off-ball player than an on-ball player.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that Rueben Bain will be a Tennessee Titan. But Owen, where are you on Rueben Bain from Miami right now?
So go from a guy that's better to be an off-ball player than an on-ball player than a guy who is going to be the best on-ball player we talk about.
Yep.
In the edge group, at least. Again, my guy Peter Woods is still pretty high up there, but Rueben Bain you see 6'3", 275, dealt with some ankle injuries in the past. I think he's still is he still hobbled or is he fully healthy this season? I can't remember. Because I know Mesidor had another ankle injury this year, but I don't think Bain has dealt with anything recently, has he?
I got 2024 soft tissue injury, but nothing from this year written down.
All right, perfect. So it seems like he's made his full recovery, and that was I remember in the summer that was the thing that everyone was kind of concerned about, was like, is he going to be able to rebound from having some soft tissue stuff, especially for a guy that plays at such a heavy weight and plays in the style that he does, which is, I am kicking your ass. We're doing this one way, and it is me burying you for 60 minutes of football. He plays through your face. That game against Notre Dame, like I remember we were covering Notre Dame previews up until I think the first one we did was after the season started, after game 1. And I was watching, I think is Emil Wagner, the tackle that they have. Yep. And I was like, this was a bad game to watch in preparation for this because he was just getting tossed by Rueben Bain. Just a man you draft to throw other men around, other large human men around. Just a massive man, plays through your face, has some moves and some skill to pair with it. Like he's going to be a guy that, again, has his framework built around the power game, using his hands, being a strong run defender, being able to set the hard edge, find the ball. And then as well as with his pass rush, has abilities to, he's not going to bend around the edge and win with a ton of speed, but if he gets your outside shoulder, he can generate enough push there, enough speed to like collapse that angle. You just ask Emil Wagner and put him back into your quarterback as an outside rush, but not a true straight up speed guy. So I think that he has multiple different ways to win. It's all branching off the same tree. It's not like you have multiple different pathways. But the fact that he is so far along where he's at with winning that, I think that he's a dude that you bring in, he can be an immediate difference maker. I don't know if he has like ceiling of some of the other like top end edge rushers that have been drafted recently, like Abdul Carter, in that Will Anderson in the past few drafts. But he's a guy that you're drafting him. He's going to be, a starter, and especially if he goes to the Titans and has a guy like Jeffrey Simmons to complement him, that already becomes like a team that has basically no pass rush from their edge right now. Immediately has a boost to that, and he makes every other player around him better. Nice.
You said you had him in front of Peter Woods?
I have them basically even with the grade wise right now.
Okay.
Now, Owen, with your positional multiplier, do you consider edge to be a more important position than defensive tackle? Or are they?
I do.
Okay.
The edge is more important, yes.
Okay, got it. Sorry for the interrupt. Newt,
no, please. No, I was just kind of wondering that. I don't need to elaborate a ton more. I like that question. That's a really good question from Ryan. I think they work off of each other actually really well. I think that, Bain's got obviously the name brand to him, but man, Messidor works his ass off. And I think he's earned everything that he has coming to him. And I think both of them would succeed, if you were to pull them apart from one another, but it doesn't hurt. That's for sure. But no, I think you hit the nail on the coffin. I think he wins in multiple ways. I liked his handwork. I think he's got some good moves with that. I think he's able to win with speed. He's not the bendiest athlete, but I think he can use his hands to work both inside and outside on an offensive tackle. Solid in run defense. I think these three guys, the thing that's going to set them apart from, I got David Bailey as number 4 on my edge rankings, but, I take a look at Parker, Bain, and Faulk, and, they are 3-down players. They are able to play the run and be a pass rusher. And I think with Bain, especially, he is the epitome of what you want that overall player to look like. I think you hit the nail on the head with the ceiling. But my last line in his strengths is he just lives in the backfield. Like every team has to play quicker when they play against Miami, because if you are in the pocket for 3 seconds, Rueben Bain is in your face mask and showing you what the turf looks like, because he's just that good of an edge defender. I don't have a blue chip grade on him, but I have a very high first round grade on him that is not quite there. So I really like Rueben Bain. He sits right behind Arvell Reese in terms of my overall rankings.
Yeah, he's to answer Ryan's question about how they play off each other, especially when you're talking about edges. I feel like they're a lot more independent of one another, because a lot of times teams aren't going to be throwing doubles at edges specifically, unless it's going to be like a running back or a tight end chipping and getting off. Where I feel like that question matters a lot more is when you have 2 stud D tackles next to each other, because there's a lot less space, and it's that they direct the double teams a lot more that way. For me, when you're watching the Miami game, it's not like Bain's killing the one tackle and that allows Messidor to make his plays. It's like they make plays, both of them, independent of what the other one's doing. Sometimes they both win in the same rep. Sometimes neither of them win. Sometimes one's winning over the other and one is winning the other time. There's a lot of plays where I'm watching it and there's nothing that the team is doing, the offense is doing to offset it. And I think the fact is that because you have 2 guys who are so talented on both edges, they're like, we might as well not worry about sending help to either of them. Both of our tackles are going to be on the struggle bus as soon as we park this baby. So we need to just try to find a place where we can send help and then be a plus spot, as opposed to picking our poison as it is.
Yeah, I think that's really well said.
Okay, so I was just checking the Vegas odds 10 to 11% that Rueben Bain is the first overall draft pick.
Those are like plus 1,000.
It's between 650 and 900.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So
His
depending
number
on the sports book, it's between 10.5% to 11.1%, depending on.
I mean, realistically, man, I'm like, you're not wrong, Jim. If Tennessee's there, then that's it. I wonder, if the Giants are there. They just grabbed Abdul Carter, and they've got Thibodeau, and they've got Burns. So, I don't see that happening.
Well, right,
but I think that
it's not slam dunk that Bain goes first overall. The way, right?
No,
we
I
still
think
have
that,
a few others to talk about, like Carnell Tate or some of the quarterbacks, etc.
right. I think anytime you've got a quarterback in there, I mean, and once again, I wasn't the biggest Cam Ward fan, but it was a foregone conclusion what was happening last year, and I think that really sets things up. I think if you got Mendoza and you got Simpson, that both declare, and then Moore ends up declaring. I don't know if he will or not. It's like, okay, well, we've got 3 quarterbacks that have legitimate first round film and buzz. That heavily changes things. But I think if you start talking about the best non-quarterback player in this draft, I think Bain's name easily could be up there. Like I said, Arvell Reese, I have a little bit ahead of him. Caleb Downs, I have a little bit ahead of both of those guys. But they're all in a very similar boat to me. I know Owen's got Peter Woods there as well. So,
Yep. So
I mean, if you're the Titans, right? And so if say the draft order ends today and it goes Titans 1, Giants 2, Browns, Saints, Jets, Vegas, and you get a call from the Jets and you're like, okay, I can move down from 1 to 5 and pick up a boatload of picks. Would you rather take that and then pick up Arvell Reese instead, or would you rather stay at 1 and pick Bain?
That's the
it's
thing.
always
I
more
think
picks. If you're where the Titans are,
yeah.
As long as the trade down, who traded down and didn't take Travis Hunter? Was that the Giants?
It was the Browns.
The Browns. Okay. Yeah, so it would be a trade down to me similar to the Browns.
Yeah. But I think that I think that makes sense, especially once you get if you have 2 quarterbacks in there and those teams are going to be there, you can peg those. And then so once again, if we're saying Reese, Bain, Peter Woods, Blaine. I like Caleb Downs, but those are good football players. And then you're going to kind of get that effect. I mean, what was it? Who was the first? Yeah, Malik Neighbors went 5th overall or something like that year,
right?
Which is stupid with how good he is, but it's because how that quarterback room kind of pushed people along a fair amount. So I think that opportunity is going to be there this year, especially if you need some edge help. And you might say Bain and Reese are the guys, which I think they are. This is the year where you could feel comfortable about taking that trade down and acquiring some of those picks.
Yep. And it's shaping up to be a good year to get a corner or a wide receiver. And I think the quote that was given at 7 p.m. today is that as long as your team needs a cornerback 2 and you're not looking for the shutdown cornerback 1, it's actually shaping up to be a really good draft.
Nice.
For those positions. And I think Randall has 42 draftable grades on wide receivers. So we still have one more group of 9 to go through, but we're at 35 draftable grades. And Nick Harbor's in the final group, so he's an underclassman. So he may go back. And Ian Strong may go back. But generally speaking, most of those draftable grades are in this draft class. So,
nice.
So, Owen, you want to let everybody know about the weekly huddle and the fun things that you do?
Yeah, fun things like have Newt Weston come on it all summer and do his top 10 summer scouting ranking videos, as well as I do a bunch of other stuff over at Twitter at Weekly Huddle or YouTube, the Weekly Huddle. I do some video breakdowns. Again, I say this twice a week, every week. I've been slacking a bit just from having such a busy schedule at the moment. But once we finally get out of this semester, I'll be back to making some content where we're talking about some fun players that we maybe even don't even cover on these podcasts that you can come over and check out, especially my Mac boys. Love covering my Mac guys over there. But so you can check me out talking about other players' film, talking about other just random topics when it comes to either the draft or NFL football, as well as just find my takes over on Twitter as well. And then catch me here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with two equally as accomplished people in the world of football, Newt Weston and Jerry Ostrowski.
God. Right, I was going to say Red Murdoch too. Sparks beat me to it.
I didn't even make the list.
We're bummed. Well, I enjoy spending my Wednesdays here with Jim personally, even though Owen doesn't. Newt Weston, you can find me on Twitter at NFL Draft _Weston. I've been pretty dedicated to clipping up players, popping them up there, giving previews, as Owen says, to who I really like and maybe who I'm not so high on. I try not to shit all over anyone. Just try to keep my mouth shut on those kind of guys. But I also run zerotechdraft.com, where as we start to wrap up these positional rankings and get into other ones, I'm going to start to post my top 50, maybe to start with, maybe even less, 32, who knows. But then also some positional write-ups, some mock drafts, and those sorts of things as we start really getting into draft season. So you can check me out over there at zerotechdraft.com here on Wednesday nights with Jim and Owen, talking about defensive tackles and edges for 2 more weeks, excluding next week where we're off for Thanksgiving Eve. And then I think what our big board is like December 17th, I believe. Yeah. And then Jim's giving us the keys to the show and saying, hey, talk about whatever you want, which will be a fun ride. So yeah, all the way up through draft night, you can catch us here Wednesday nights.
Yeah, my instinct, Ryan, is that Rueben didn't make Newt's top 10, but that's just me. So,
that's weird. Ryan just unfollowed me on Twitter.
So the players that Newt and Owen will have on December 3rd, Dominique Orange from Iowa State, Cam Robertson from SMU, Romello Height from Texas Tech, Max Llewellyn from Iowa, Logan Fano from Utah, Chris McClellan from Missouri, Aaron Graves from Iowa, James Smith from Alabama, Jayshon Barham from Michigan, and Trey Moore from Texas. So, Newt, how many of those names were new to you?
Oh, man. Like probably 2/3. Graves and Big Citrus, I definitely have taken a look at. I really like Graves over the summer, so that'll be fun. And then Llewellyn also I liked a lot, but every other one is new. I know there's a lot of hype around Romello Height, so I'm really excited to check out his tape. But yeah, it's a lot of new names for me.
Cool. So for Newt, Owen, myself, thank you so much for stopping by. For the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.